I swear, if that smug bastard had said one more word, I would have given him a smile he'd never forget. The kind that rearranges your dental plan. We were at a dinner I didn't even want. Candlelight, fancy wine, the kind of place where the waiters act like you owe them money just for being there. My wife, Claire, had called it a serious talk. And like a fool, I thought she meant serious about us. Turns out, the only thing she was serious about was watching me get humiliated in high definition. He was already there when I arrived, Chase Donovan, her colleague. The guy she'd mentioned in passing one too many times with that casual tone that said, "Don't look too hard at this detail or you'll ruin the story." Chase wore a fitted black shirt like he was auditioning for the cover of Men's Health, the Homewrecker edition. Claire sat next to him, hand a little too close to his thigh, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. "Logan," she said sweetly, motioning to the seat across from them. "This is Chase. You've heard me mention him from work." Yeah, I'd heard. Way too often. The mentor, the inspiration, the guy who just gets her. I should have known. I sat, forced a smile, and counted to 10 in my head. My fists were already clenched under the table. Then Chase leaned in like we were about to settle something out back. "I'll make this simple," he said, voice smooth, calculated. "You've got two options. Leave quietly, or face me like a man." Claire didn't flinch. She smiled. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a spontaneous betrayal. This was theater, and I'd just walked into Act 3 without seeing the script. I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down carefully, and said, "Funny thing, Chase. I was just about to offer you the same two options." His smirk twitched. Claire's fork paused midair. And right then, I decided. Whatever game they thought they were playing, I was already one step ahead. The waiter arrived right then, which was probably the only reason Chase still had a smile on his face. "Will you all be dining with us this evening?" the poor kid asked, oblivious to the silent gunfight happening across the table. "Of course," Claire chirped, sliding the menu toward me like this was just another date night. She even brushed Chase's hand when she did it. Subtle as a marching band. I leaned back, studied them both. Claire looked radiant, like betrayal had done wonders for her complexion. Chase looked smug, like he'd already won. I gave the waiter a polite nod. "I'll just have water," I said. "Sir, the chef recommends." "Just water." Claire sighed. "Logan, don't be difficult." I turned to her, smiled like a man with a secret. "I'm not being difficult, sweetheart. I'm just saving room." "Room for what?" Chase asked. "For dessert," I said, still smiling. "I hear karma's on the menu." Chase chuckled, the kind of laugh guys do when they're not sure if they've just been insulted. Claire's eyes darted to me. That was the first crack. Because here's the thing about my wife. She thrives on control. She loves scripting every scene, setting the stage, knowing exactly where the audience will gasp. And I had just reminded her that not every actor follows the script. The rest of the meal passed like a hostage negotiation. Claire kept trying to lighten the mood. Jokes, fake smiles, little touches on my arm. I just kept eating my bread roll in silence, letting her sweat. Finally, as we stood to leave, Chase leaned close, his breath warm in my ear. "You're not man enough to keep her happy." I didn't flinch. I just leaned back and whispered, "Good thing I'm not planning to keep her then." The look on his face? Worth the price of dinner. Claire didn't speak the whole car ride home, which, honestly, was a miracle. Usually, she filled silence like it was a crime scene she had to cover up. But not that night. No, that night she just sat there, staring out the window like the streetlights might hand her a better husband. When we pulled into the driveway, she finally turned. "You embarrassed me," she said flatly. I chuckled. "Funny. That's the exact phrase I had ready for you." Her jaw tightened. "Don't twist this around." "Logan. Chase's. A co-worker?" I cut in. "A mentor? A spiritual guide? Go on. I've heard the trailer. Give me the whole movie." "Stop it." Her voice cracked just enough to tell me the mask was slipping. "You don't know what you're talking about." I leaned on the steering wheel. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just waiting for you to admit it." She didn't. Of course she didn't. Claire never admitted anything until the evidence was shoved under her nose. And even then, she'd treat it like a suggestion. So I let it drop. Out loud, anyway. Inside, I'd already made my move. See, I'd noticed weeks ago she started keeping her phone face down, her gym bag practically glued to her shoulder. And that smile she wore, the one that didn't belong to me anymore, it was all the proof I needed. So while she stormed upstairs that night, muttering about how I was impossible, I went to the study, opened my laptop, and logged into an email account she didn't know I had. 2 weeks earlier, I'd set up a little trick. Synced her phone backups to the cloud. Purely for safekeeping, of course. Because what's marriage without trust? And right there, waiting for me, was a text thread. Claire and Chase. Her words, "I'll talk to him soon. He's too blind to notice anyway." His reply, "Good. I'm tired of sneaking around." I leaned back, smiling in the glow of the screen. "Blind," I muttered. "No, sweetheart. I just like to let the dominoes line themselves up before I flick the first one. They say a marriage dies quietly. Little sighs, little silences, little half-truths stacked on top of each other like Jenga blocks. Ours didn't die quietly. Ours was about to go out with fireworks, and Claire didn't even know I was the one lighting the fuse. The morning after the dinner with Chase, Claire moved around the kitchen like a ghost with an attitude. She slammed a cabinet door here, dropped a spoon there. Nothing dramatic enough for neighbors to hear, but just enough to let me know she was still mad. I sipped my coffee, perfectly calm. "You going to say something?" she snapped. I looked up from the paper. "About what?" "You humiliated me." "Oh, at what point? When your boyfriend threatened me over salmon tartare, or when you pretended you didn't know what was happening?" Her lips pressed tight, the way they always did when she was out of comebacks. "You're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" I repeated, setting my mug down carefully. That's a fun word. Almost makes me sound crazy, doesn't it? She turned away, fiddling with the coffee machine she never used until last month. I noticed she'd bought Chase's favorite brand of beans. Cute. I let the silence linger before adding. "Just curious, Claire. When you put your phone face down on the counter every night, do you think I don't notice?" Her shoulders stiffened. "It's nothing." "Sure," I said, voice light. "Just like the gym bag that weighs about as much as a bowling ball. Protein powder must be getting denser these days." She spun around, eyes flashing. "You're digging for something that isn't there." I smiled, leaned back in my chair. "Then I guess you've got nothing to worry about." That shut her up. But I could see it in her face, the first flicker of fear that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as clever as she thought. Later that day, while she ran errands, I set the next domino in place. I drove to the bank, pulled up account statements. Turns out, Chase had a taste for expensive restaurants and hotel stays, and Claire had been kind enough to help fund a few of them with our joint card. Rookie mistake. So I shifted a chunk of money into an account she didn't know existed. Not all of it, just enough to make her nervous when she checked. The kind of missing sum that couldn't be explained by a Target run. Then I called my buddy Dan. Dan and I went to college together, and these days he worked as a private investigator. The kind of guy who could find out what brand of gum you bought in 2007 if you wanted. "Logan," he said when he picked up, "long time. How's life?" "Educational," I replied. "That good, huh? Think you can tail someone for me?" "My wife and her co-worker." He whistled low. "Say no more. I'll start tonight." By the time Claire came home, humming a tune she probably thought would cover the perfume that wasn't hers, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through the photos Dan had already texted me. Claire and Chase, walking out of a hotel. Him with that smug grin, her laughing at something I'm sure wasn't funny. I almost felt bad for how predictable they were. Almost. She dropped her keys in the bowl. "Why are you staring at me like that?" "Like what?" I asked, pocketing my phone. "Like you know something." I smiled. "Maybe I do." That weekend, I made sure the dominoes kept falling. Saturday morning, I offered to drive her to her yoga class. She panicked, of course. Claimed she needed to go early, that I should just sleep in. I insisted. She finally agreed, lips pressed thin enough to draw blood. We pulled up to a studio I knew she hadn't been to in weeks. She kissed my cheek, quick, mechanical, and walked inside. I waited. 2 minutes later, Dan texted. "She's out the back. Silver sedan. Guess who's driving?" I drove off, whistling. Didn't even bother to follow. I already knew where they were headed. By the time she got home that night, her face was flushed, hair slightly mussed. She smelled like a mix of perfume and guilt. "How was yoga?" I asked, eyes never leaving the TV. "Good," she said quickly. "Stretch out all the tension." Her nod was too fast, too practiced. I smiled. "Good. You'll need it." She froze. "Need it for what?" "Oh, you'll see." Sunday, I went for a run. At least, that's what I told her. In reality, I met Dan at a diner. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, timestamps, receipts. Every lie documented. Every smile caught. Claire in a hotel lobby. Chase's hand on her lower back. Their names on a reservation for Mr. and Mrs. Donovan. I closed the folder slowly. Perfect. You gonna confront her? Dan asked. Not yet, I said. Let her build her house of cards a little taller. Makes it more satisfying when the wind blows. That night, Claire tried being affectionate. It was laughable. She draped herself over the couch, asked if I wanted to watch a movie, even offered to order my favorite takeout. Feeling generous? I asked. Just trying, she said softly, her eyes searching mine for weakness. I studied her for a long second, then leaned forward. Claire, do you think I'm stupid? Her lips parted. What? No, of course not. Then don't treat me like I am. She blinked. For the first time in months, she didn't have a script. I stood, kissed the top of her head like a man who wasn't worried at all, and said, Dinner sounds great, but don't bother ordering for Chase. I'm sure he already ate. Her eyes went wide. She tried to recover, stammering something about not knowing what I meant. I didn't push. Not yet. Because the thing about dominoes is you don't flick them over too soon. You wait until the last one is in place. And I was almost there. By the time I went to bed that night, I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, focused, because Claire thought she was playing chess. But me? I was the guy holding the board. The funny thing about cheaters is they always think they're starring in a movie. Claire had convinced herself she was the leading lady, and I was some background character whose job was to nod and stay out of the way while she twirled into her happily ever after. Except she forgot something. Background characters don't usually keep score. Monday morning, she was suddenly in a rush for work. Extra makeup, hair curled, perfume a little heavier than usual. She didn't kiss me goodbye, just tossed a "don't wait up" over her shoulder like it was a casual Tuesday instead of a neon sign screaming I'm cheating on you. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching her car back down the driveway. Then I called Dan. She's dressed for battle, I told him. He chuckled. Already tailing her. You'll get pictures before lunch. At 10:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Dan. Hotel Layton. Room 412. Guess who checked in together? He attached a photo. Claire, in her office clothes, slipping into the lobby beside Chase, who looked like he'd been waiting for that moment his whole smug life. I zoomed in. Her smile wasn't even guilty. It was carefree, like she'd just stepped into the life she thought she deserved. I didn't get angry. I didn't even sigh. I just saved the photo, opened a fresh document on my laptop, and titled it, Claire's Greatest Hits. Inside, I started dropping evidence. Screenshots, bank records, receipts, Dan's photos. Piece by piece, I built the kind of file that would make a divorce lawyer weep with gratitude. That evening, when she finally stumbled home, she smelled like hotel soap and someone else's cologne. How was work? I asked, not looking up from the couch. Long day, she said quickly, sliding off her heels. So many meetings. I nodded slowly. Bet you nailed them. She froze, just for a second. Then she forced a laugh. What's that supposed to mean? Just a compliment. I sipped my drink. You've always been persuasive. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't answer. The next day, I added another domino. I called her boss. Not to rat her out. Not yet. Just to confirm a suspicion. Hi, this is Logan Carter. I was hoping to catch Claire, but her phone's been off. Her boss sounded surprised. Oh, she's not in today. Took a personal day. Right, I said smoothly. Thanks for letting me know. I hung up, smiling, because Claire had left that morning in a pencil skirt and blazer, babbling about a client meeting. And now I had proof her lies were catching up with her. That night, when she breezed through the door and dropped a stack of fake reports on the counter, I simply asked, How was the client meeting? She blinked. Good. Productive. Funny. I said, keeping my tone casual. Your boss said you took a personal day. The color drained from her face so fast I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She recovered quickly, though. Claire always did. Oh, well, yeah. I, had to reschedule. Didn't want to bother you with the details. I smiled faintly. Of course. Why would you? And just like that, she knew I was onto her. 2 days later, the cracks widened. She came into the kitchen with her phone glued to her hand. Logan, we need to talk. I raised an eyebrow. Finally. She hesitated. You've been distant lately. I almost laughed. Distant. That's what she called not screaming when you find out your wife's got a loyalty card for the Hotel Layton. I'm fine. I said simply. No, you're not, she insisted. You're being cold. Maybe I'm just saving my warmth for someone who deserves it. Her face flickered. Fear, anger, guilt, all in one messy second. You're being unfair. Unfair, I repeated. Like telling your husband you're at a client meeting while checking into a hotel with Chase? She froze, her lips parting. What? What are you talking about? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. Room 412. Tuesday. Nice place. Bit pricey though? Did he at least pick up the tab? Or are we putting that on our joint card too? The silence that followed was golden. She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Just stared at me like a kid caught shoplifting with candy still in their mouth. Finally, she whispered, "You're spying on me." I smiled. No, Claire. I'm paying attention. The next few days were theater. She tried everything. Cooking my favorite meals, dressing up for no reason, even leaving little notes like we were suddenly back in the honeymoon phase. One morning, I found a sticky note on my steering wheel. Love you, babe. Cute. Except she'd accidentally left Chase's hotel receipt in the glove compartment. Amateur hour. So I played along. I ate the dinners, smiled at the notes, even kissed her goodnight, all while stacking the dominoes higher and higher. Because I knew something she didn't. The higher the tower, the harder the fall. Friday night, she cracked. We were sitting on the porch, sipping wine like some happy suburban couple. She set her glass down carefully and said, "Logan, maybe we need to reevaluate." I tilted my head. Reevaluate what? Us. I nodded slowly, like I was considering it. You're right. We should. Her eyes widened, hopeful. Really? Sure, I said casually. I'll call a lawyer on Monday. We'll make it official. She choked on her wine. What? I smiled. You said reevaluate. Sounds like you've already decided where you stand. Her face went pale. No, I didn't mean divorce. Oh, I said softly. Then what did you mean? Because you're not acting like a woman fighting for her marriage. You're acting like a woman hoping I'll look the other way while she builds a new one. She sputtered, reaching for my hand. I love you, Logan. I pulled my hand back. Do you? Or do you just love not being caught? That night, she cried in the bathroom. I could hear it through the door. She'd never been much of a crier, so I knew this wasn't about guilt. It was about fear. Fear of losing the cushy life she'd built with me while keeping Chase as her little side project. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, smiling faintly. Because the dominoes were standing tall now. And in the morning, I'd be ready to give them that gentle flick. I woke up Saturday morning with a plan. Not the kind you scribble on a napkin. No, this was the kind of plan you could frame in a courtroom if it came to that. And if Claire wanted to play games, I'd make sure she didn't know the rules until it was far too late. She came downstairs in yoga pants and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back like she'd just rolled out of bed. No makeup, no perfume, a clear attempt at looking innocent. Morning, she said carefully. Morning, I replied, sipping coffee. We sat in silence, the kind that hums like a live wire. She finally spoke first. I was thinking we should have a date night. Just us. I smiled faintly. Sure. Why not? Her shoulders eased, like I'd thrown her a lifeline. She had no idea I'd already pulled the plug. Around noon, I called Dan. Tonight's the night, I told him. You sure you want to drop it all at once? Not all of it, I said. Just enough to make her sweat. He chuckled. You're colder than I remember. Not cold, I said. Just done being the punchline. By the time Claire finished getting ready that evening, she looked like the woman I'd married. Dress, heels, earrings I'd bought her years ago. She gave me that smile, the one she used to wear when she thought she owned the room. You look beautiful, I said sincerely. Because she did. Thank you, she replied, a little too eagerly. At dinner, she kept trying to steer the conversation toward vacations, family trips, our future. I nodded, smiled, let her talk. But I wasn't listening. I was watching her hands shake slightly as she lifted her wine glass. Finally, I leaned forward. Claire, do you believe in honesty? She blinked. Of course. Then let's practice. I slid my phone across the table. On the screen, the photo of her and Chase at Hotel Layton. Her face drained like someone had cut the power. Logan. I held up a hand. Don't. Please. I'm not interested in fairy tales. She opened her mouth, closed it again. No words. Just panic flickering in her eyes. I leaned back, calm as ever. Here's the deal. I already know everything. Every text. Every meeting. Every hotel room. You've been spying on me, she stammered. No, I said. I've been paying attention. Big difference. She gripped the edge of the table. Logan, I can explain. I laughed softly. That's the thing about explanations. They don't work when the other person already knows the ending. Her eyes filled with tears. It was a mistake. Funny, I said, tilting my head. Most mistakes don't require a hotel membership discount. She flinched like I'd slapped her. The waiter appeared then, cheerfully asking if we'd like dessert. I smiled up at him. Not tonight. We're already full. Claire barely touched her food after that. She sat there, staring at me like she was waiting for a verdict. But I wasn't giving her one. Not yet. Back home, she cornered me in the hallway. Please, she whispered. Don't throw us away over this. I raised an eyebrow. Over this? Claire, you already threw it away. I'm just the guy cleaning up the mess. She grabbed my arm. I love you. No, I said calmly, peeling her hand off. You love the life I built. You love the house, the stability, the security blanket. Me? I'm just the guy who happened to come with the package. Her tears spilled then, running down her face in streaks. She wasn't used to me being unshakable. Usually, I'd break first, the apologizer, the peacemaker, the guy who wanted to believe her. Not this time. You don't understand, she pleaded. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. I understand that while you were busy laughing at Chase's jokes, I was busy making sure you'd regret underestimating me. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. And maybe she didn't. The next morning, I put the second stage of my plan into motion. I transferred the rest of our savings into a separate account. Not illegally, not sneakily, legally. The account had both our names on it, but the online credentials? Just mine. If she wanted access, she'd have to ask. And I knew her pride wouldn't let her. Then I called a lawyer. Not to file for divorce yet, but to prepare. I wanted every card in my hand before she realized she was playing with none. After that, I met Dan at a cafe. He slid a fresh stack of photos across the table. She's been busy, he said. I flipped through them. Claire and Chase at the park. At his apartment. At another hotel. Her smile was the same every time. Carefree. Like she'd already forgotten the man she promised her life to. Good work, I said, slipping the photos into my folder. Dan leaned in. So what's next? I smiled faintly. Next? I let her think she still has a chance. That evening, Claire cooked dinner. Candlelight, soft music, the works. She was pulling out all the stops, trying to patch holes in a sinking ship. Halfway through the meal, she reached across the table, took my hand, and whispered, "Let's start fresh. Please." I studied her face. The desperation in her eyes wasn't about love. It was about survival. All right, I said finally. Her breath caught. Really? Sure. Let's start fresh. She squeezed my hand, relief flooding her features. I smiled, steady and calm. Just don't be surprised if I'm not the one who gets burned this time. Her smile faltered, just a little. Enough to let me know the message landed. That night, I lay in bed while she slept beside me, pretending peace had returned. But I knew better. She thought I'd given in, that I'd forgiven her. What she didn't know was that I'd already set the final dominoes in place. And when they fell, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose the life she'd built on my back. Claire thought the worst was behind her. That's the funny part. She actually believed a few candlelit dinners and crocodile tears could erase months of lies. I played along, smiled when she smiled, let her drape herself on my arm in public like the picture-perfect wife. But behind that smile, I was building a net she wouldn't see until it was too late. First, I called her boss again. Casual conversation. Slipped in a question about Claire's overtime. Turns out, she'd been taking more personal days than actual workdays. The company didn't like that. Not at all. Second, I quietly canceled the joint credit card she'd been using for her little hotel adventures. Replaced it with one in my name only. Let her find out the hard way when her card got declined at some fancy restaurant with Chase. And third, my personal favorite, I sent myself an email from her phone. A little oops moment while she was in the shower. It contained every screenshot, every photo, every detail of her betrayal. Timestamped. Verified. Traceable. By the time I was done, Claire's castle was nothing but a sand sculpture waiting for the tide. It happened on a Wednesday. Fitting, really, nothing glamorous about a Wednesday. Claire waltzed into the kitchen, humming, holding a shopping bag that definitely wasn't from the grocery store. I looked up from my laptop. Good trip. Just errands, she said quickly, slipping the bag behind her. I closed the laptop. Funny. Your boss called. Said you missed another client meeting today. Her face paled. There must be a mistake. I slid the folder across the table. Photos, receipts, messages, all neatly arranged. Then explain this, I said. She flipped through the evidence, her hands shaking so badly the papers nearly slid to the floor. You've been spying on me. No, I said calmly. I've been preparing. Tears filled her eyes. Logan, please. I can fix this. I leaned back, folding my arms. No, Claire. You can't. Because you didn't just cheat on me. You underestimated me. That was the part that stung her most. Not the exposure. Not the loss. The realization that I wasn't the gullible fool she thought I was. By Friday, the dominoes had finally toppled. Her boss suspended her pending review. Our joint account, empty. Her credit card, declined. Chase. He wasn't answering her calls anymore. Funny how men like him love a thrill, but not the fallout. She stormed into the living room, eyes wild. You did this. I looked up from my coffee. Did what? You ruined everything. I chuckled. No, Claire. You ruined everything. I just made sure you couldn't lie about it. She sank onto the couch, sobbing. I have nothing. I tilted my head. You have Chase. Oh, wait. No, you don't. She glared at me through tears. How could you be so cruel? Cruel? I repeated. Cruel is dragging your husband to a restaurant so your boyfriend can threaten him over appetizers. Cruel is laughing at me behind my back while spending my money on hotel rooms. This is justice. She buried her face in her hands, whispering, What am I supposed to do now? I stood, set my empty coffee cup in the sink, and said, That's the part I'm looking forward to watching. The next morning, I left early, packed the essentials into my car, clothes, laptop, my folder of evidence. I didn't slam a door, didn't leave a note, just walked out like a man who'd already made peace. At noon, I sent her one final message. Short, simple, to the point. Claire, the lawyer will be in touch Monday. Everything you valued is gone because you treated it like nothing. Don't call me. Don't follow me. Enjoy your fresh start. You've earned it. Logan. I blocked her number, set my phone down, and drove. Where? Didn't matter. I wasn't running from anything. I was just leaving a chapter behind. Because the real revenge wasn't the money or the evidence or even watching her life collapse around her. The real revenge was the silence. And as I rolled down the highway, windows open, sunlight spilling across the dash, I smiled. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't the fool in her story. I was the author of mine.